Apple, Google, Microsoft, Meta, some of the largest tech giants in the world. Almost all of us know a little bit about all of these companies. Well, there's one more company working behind the shadows. The controversial Chinese company not many people know about. Valued at almost $600 billion, managing data of almost 1.3 billion active users. That's Tencent. So what does Tencent actually do? Tencent does everything.
Yeah, I think Tencent has just reported a very solid set of results. Their revenue growth was 13%, operating profit growth is 18%.
Now you should prepare to press play because China's gaming giant Tencent is back in action.
Tencent investing more than $1 billion in a new carve-out of French video game maker Ubisoft. The new entity will include popular titles such as Assassin's Creed, Far Cry and Rainbow Six.
Tencent is an octopus whose tentacles almost reach every industry all over the world. While we might not know much about Tencent, we certainly use products or services in which Tencent is involved. In China, it's a completely different story. There, every people know that Tencent dominates every aspect of their lives. Transactions, social media, paying bills, communications, ordering food, hiring taxis, and what not. Tencent is also one of the largest gaming companies in the world. WeChat payment business, a venture of Tencent, is as big as the entire business of PayPal. It is big in esport competitions, they have Tencent Music, and also involved in making Hollywood movies like Men in Black. Well, it might sound as a huge tech empire, which certainly is. Tencent has a really dark side. It has a very controversial reputation in the world market. Many services of Tencent are also banned in major countries. So let's dive into this crazy story of the rise and domination of one of the largest secret tech giants in the world. The story starts with this guy, Pony Ma. You might not have heard much about him on the internet or television. He is quite introvert, but he was great at coding from his college times. This was the early 1990s and the internet was in its early stage. Therefore, this world of internet really fascinated him and he realized that it could have a huge potential in the future. He had a dream to create something which could have a worldwide influence in the life of the people. One day, while Pony Ma was surfing on the internet, he came across a one-on-one chat service called ICQ. Matter of fact, copying Western services was one of the major trends in China in those days. Just like Baidu copied Google, Alibaba copied eBay, and many more. So in November 1998, Pony Ma with 4 of his other classmates and friends launched a company and named it Tencent. A year later, they created a duplicate chat service just like ICQ and named it OICQ. Too lazy to even find a new name. Initially, OICQ had no users, but it slowly started to grow. More and more people started using the software. But Pony Ma realized that was actually a problem. Tech services in China were way too expensive at that time. And OICQ was not monetized, so they were making zero money from the software. In fact, they had to invest more and more money from their side to keep the software running. Tencent's difficulties were yet not over. 9 months after starting OICQ, Tencent received an official letters from the lawyers of AOL, a giant American company that actually owned ICQ. They had sued Tencent for violating intellectual properties. By then, Tencent had about 1 million users, but they did not have enough money to fight a legal lawsuit. Thus, Pony Ma decided to sell the company, but now nobody wanted to buy it because it was just a duplicate chat service used by a bunch of people that made no revenue. Since there was no other way out, Pony Ma approached a venture capital called IDG Capital. Venture capital basically provides funding for early startups in which they find some potential. Ponima managed to get a funding of $2.2 million for 40% of OICQ. To get away with the legal matters from AOL, Tencent renamed their chat service from OICQ to QQ. Tencent's 2 out of 3 major problems were solved. The first, finding money, and the second, the legal charges from AOL. Only the third problem remained, which was to monetize OICQ, or rather QQ, so that they could generate some money from their massive user base. Massive? Yes, QQ had over 1 million users by the end of the first year and 50 million users by the end of the second year. Tencent tried many ways to monetize QQ, but nothing really worked out until they found a Korean website called Say Club. The site allowed users to create personal avatars by customizing yourselves with clothing and accessories, a feature quite similar to the present-day Snapchat. And yes, you needed to buy all these personalized dresses and stuff by paying a small fee. Tencent found this as an amazing way to make some money, so they integrated the same feature inside QQ and named it QQ Show. This was quite successful as QQ had a much larger user base and people would use their avatars as a symbol of status and luxury by buying the most expensive dresses and stuffs. Well, everything was going really well. Their user base was growing, they were making a ton of money from the new features. Tencent started to get significant attention. Naspers, a South African company, invested $32 million into Tencent, which is still one of its largest shareholders. Their chat service was going really well, but Tencent wanted to expand its empire. They had a brilliant idea for this. QQ was often used to chat with friends while playing games, so Tencent realized that their best possible move would be to acquire and build games. Well, there was a policy in China. For any foreign companies to work in China, they had to collaborate with any local Chinese company. Therefore, Tencent teamed up with successful games all around the world and launched it in the Chinese market. They also made few games of their own. Tencent was one of those first companies to promote in-game purchases, and therefore their revenue started growing rapidly. Tencent made its IPO in the Hong Kong stock market in 2004. Now they had way more money to invest into multiple other ventures. By 2010, Tencent had accumulated a revenue of $2.1 billion, crushing every competitor that came on its way. At this stage, Tencent realized one very important thing. You cannot make everybody your enemy. Therefore, Tencent started investing in local Chinese companies instead of directly competing with them. They invested $448 million for 36.5% of China's third largest search engine, Sogu. Tencent also collaborated with JD.com, which is China's one of the largest retailers. Now, QQ was not only a chat software but a portal to multiple other services that Tencent had either created or invested. You might think that the success route of Tencent was laid, but the craziest turn in the fate of the company was yet to come. Imagine paying rent, hailing taxis, booking movie tickets, transferring money, gossiping with friends, all inside one single app. That was Tencent's objective. It was the 2010s and the use of mobile phones was increasing rapidly. They were compact devices so people could carry them literally everywhere. Ponima was on a mission to create a software just like QQ, but designed exclusively for mobile phones. And this one app was about to change the future of the company forever. On 21st January 2011, Tencent launched WeChat, a one-on-one chat service designed specifically for mobile phones. Just like QQ, Ponima wanted to integrate multiple services into this one single app. Since mobile phones were carried almost everywhere, the number of services that could have been integrated was limitless. WeChat was a massive hit because of their already existing user base. By 2015, they had almost 500 million users. They built the entire app streamlined for the Chinese market. In January 2017, WeChat introduced the feature of mini programs. This means that multiple other apps could have their own mini app inside WeChat itself, so that people could access multiple services from one single app rather than surfing among multiple apps. Basically, it's WhatsApp, Instagram, Spotify, PayPal, Uber, Netflix, all combined into one single app. So far, the story of Tencent seems pretty inspiring and majestic. Well, get ready, because it is about to take a dark turn. Have you ever wondered that if WeChat is so popular in China, why couldn't it expand to any other countries? In 1980s, the Chinese government allocated Shenzhen as the first area to carry out its economic plans to make China an economic superpower. The plan of the government was to give huge amount of freedom to some Chinese companies like Tencent and Alibaba, which shared a large portion of the Chinese market, until and unless that was benefiting the company and the Chinese government. Their objective was to allow domestic companies to grow rather than some foreign tech giants. The money could later be used to invest in companies all around the globe, thus exerting an economic dominance. Therefore, Tencent enjoyed a lot more freedom to operate in China. However, the relationship between Tencent and the Chinese Communist Party, in short CCP, is not as straightforward as we might think. The CCP is quite aware of the power that Tencent holds. So the government allowed Tencent to enjoy all its freedoms under one very crucial condition. Every data of each and every individual on the app would be directly accessible to the Chinese government without the permission of the user. This includes your real-time location, search history, payment transactions, your opinions, text messages, your pictures uploaded, each and everything. The government would then feed this data into China's credit scoring system, where every Chinese individual is given a real-time score of how trustworthy and loyal you are as a citizen. And if you're found spreading hate or any opinion that offends the Chinese Communist Party or any of its policies, you can be blacklisted and restricted from using multiple services like public transport, theaters, and a lot more. Because of such censorships and privacy issues, WeChat has been banned in multiple other countries. It's not that Tencent wanted to exploit the data of its users, but there is no other way out. To operate in China, they have to work according to the Chinese Communist Party. Another reason of WeChat not being popular anywhere else is that WeChat was designed only according to the Chinese market. And so to survive outside China, they have to make individual versions of WeChat for every country. Also, Tencent spent way too much time to make it streamlined for the Chinese market. Therefore, they could not get the first-person advantage anywhere else. For example, if they wanted to launch WeChat Pay in the United States, they have to compete with already established companies like PayPal, which would be really expensive and difficult. Also, Tencent did not want to expand WeChat anywhere else. WeChat already has 1.3 billion active users inside of China itself, so they focused on keeping their users happy than expanding further. So if WeChat is confined to only China, how is Tencent able to exert a global dominance? It's time to understand their larger picture. Tencent realized that they had to spread outside of China or they would be completely at the mercy of the Chinese Communist Party. So they started investing a significant portion of their revenue into companies all around the globe, thus expanding their international portfolio. For example, Tencent has a 12% stake of Snapchat, 5% stake in Tesla, and also significant investments in apps like Spotify, Reddit, and Discord. Tencent is also one of the largest players in the gaming industry. Tencent had invested into companies that make some of the largest international titles. including League of Legends, Clash of Clans, PlayerUnknown's Battleground, Call of Duty Mobile, and much more. They also partnered with Roblox to bring their games in the Chinese market. Their largest investments were to get 100% of Riot Games and 40% of Epic Games. This gives Tencent shares in some of the most played games in the planet. Taking the current scenario in consideration, Tencent dominates the life of every individual. From humble beginnings in the late 90s to becoming a towering tech giant that silently waves itself into the digital lives of billions. Tencent didn't just grow, it evolved, strategized, and conquered. What started with a simple messaging app turned into a vast empire, stretching across gaming, social media, cloud computing, fintech, music, film, and beyond. You might not see Tencent, but Tencent sees you. Invested in the games you play, the music you stream, and the message you send. In an age where data is power and digital influence is king, Tencent isn't just a company. It's a force, a shadow empire reshaping the world one click at a time. The question isn't whether Tencent will dominate the next decade. It's whether anybody can stop it.